Well, hello. We are here today with Shambi, and she is one of our very first SC Codes mentors out of the Columbia area. So thank you so much for being with us today, Shambi.
I'm excited, definitely excited to participate.
I'd love to have you start by just sharing a little bit about who you are and how your journey has unfolded, your kind of background, educational journey has brought you to where you are today.
Okay, awesome. So I'm a web developer, and I guess my official capacity came in 2004. So I've been able to say like I'm a certified web designer since then, but my journey goes back even before that. I like to tell people that the job I have now wasn't even invented when I graduated high school. So it wasn't until 9 years after high school I could actually get technical training. But in the mid 90s, when was it GeoCities and all those little things were coming out, I was making a family newsletter online. So I always knew I loved technology, and being able to create websites was something that really got me excited. So when the opportunity came around for me to learn the technical side of it, I was in Spartanburg. So I went to Spartanburg Technical College. It's now Spartanburg Community College. And once I finished with that, um, I was I finished the program like a week before I had my first daughter. So I went
Wow.
through school pretty much pregnant because I was able to finish it in a year. And so after I had her, I was ready to go to work as a web designer. And because the industry was so new, there weren't a lot of jobs out there. And I interviewed for two positions and I got frustrated because my background was sales.
Mm.
So the person interviewing me spent their time convincing me I would be a better salesperson than I would be a web designer. And I'm sitting there thinking, I just finished school. You're looking at my portfolio. I'm applying for a web designer, but why don't you want to hire me for that? So, what was awesome about the program that I did was our final was actually a business plan, because the professor knew at that time if you were going to be a web designer, odds are you had to start your own company. So I told my husband, like, I already have the business plan. So I started the company, J&B Designs, and I started cold calling. And it just so happened the first business I went into, I did my pitch and he was like, sure, sign us up. Because again,
Wow.
it was so new. In 2004, small businesses didn't have a lot of them didn't have websites. So he was my first client, and it's pretty cool. We worked together for a lot of years, and he just reached out to me again last year that we might start working together again this year, and that's where I started my company. Was because of that. It was more so out of necessity, and so I worked with small and startup businesses, and then in 2014. I had an opportunity to pitch an idea that I'd been thinking about for about a year. You know, having kids, having daughters, and going into the classroom and helping my daughter's teachers and realizing that the girls were the same way I was when I was in school. They were shy, they wouldn't speak up. I'm teaching them about websites. I'm walking around the classroom and they've already done like the next two steps. But when I would say, what do we do next? They would not raise their hand. The boys are jumping up and I know what we have to do. And I said, this is still an issue after all these years that these girls know the answer, know what to do, but they're staying quiet.
Mm.
And I wanted to create a safe space. So I had that opportunity to pitch my idea for a company that would teach girls about web design and web development all together in a safe space. And that was with Ingenuity SC, the Ignite competition here in Columbia. And I won and was able to get the seed money to start Web Girls Code. And so officially in 2015 was when we were able to become a nonprofit and really get going. So I still work J&B Designs, and my passion though is with Web Girls Code. And so it's been great to just see how that's been able to grow. And I can take what I love and I'm able to share that throughout the community in the Midlands of South Carolina.
So with Web Girls Code, what are you seeing that the girls that you work with are most interested in when it comes to kind of the current programming languages, the technologies? What's exciting to them?
Yeah. What I think is amazing is you really see that creative artistic side of girls. And I love to see that they find a way to be able to foster that because they can pick up on the code. So we focus like with HTML and CSS, and they really pick up on that. But the moment you let them pick out pictures, or if they're doing scratch programming and they can create their own characters, they get so into that. And I can walk around a classroom and a girl's designing a character, and I can say, so do you like art? And she'll say no. And I'm like, but you're fantastic. I'm like, you would be a great graphic designer. So I love that discovery of things that they aren't really seen in school. No one's really telling them you could make this into you could be a graphic designer or a web designer. No one's there really telling them that. And then really be able to tell them you would be awesome at that and see their faces light up. And they get so excited. And I had one girl at a local middle school on the last day of our club meeting. She came up to me and she said, you know, I always knew that I wanted to be a writer, but now I know I also want to be a programmer. And that was awesome because I love being able to show girls, you know, that we have, our brains are different. We think differently. And you can take that, add it to technology, and it's needed. And to help them to see they can put all of their interests together is an amazing feeling.
You know, that's really describing one of the reasons why we kind of started SE Codes was this gap in really educating people about what programming is, what code is, what you can do as far as just the plethora of options with for folks who have these kind of skills. What do you see as kind of the biggest gap or the biggest need when it comes to really people of any age who might think about exploring coding as something that they are really unsure about but may want to kind of look into?
I think it's just lack of information and getting it out there. And that's one thing that I've appreciated, like with the meetups with SC Code, is you find what people just want to know where the resources are, what they can do with this training. So that's the number one thing is people understanding in an industry. Like I've learned a lot. Like for instance, kids are always talking about they want to be game designers.
Right.
And I explained to them, because I had to learn this, that it's not just someone who's programming the game, but if you're a writer, I'll ask kids, I'll say, do games have storylines? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, they need a writer to write those storylines. So I think just the public in general needs to know, when you say being a game designer, an app designer, web designer, or what have you, there's so much more to the industry than just the programming. So you have people who love code and want to be on the back end making everything work. Well, there's a spot for them. But in that same company, you have those artists and those graphic designers that are part of that team. You have those writers, you have those project managers. So I think it's helping people see it's the industry now is more like a puzzle. There's lots of different pieces that have to be put together to end up with the end product, whether it's a website, whether it's a game, whether it's an app, and helping people in the community find their place in that pipeline of technology.
So speaking of kind of the pipeline of technology, you did decide years ago to go to school and get a kind of a traditional, is it a degree?
Well, certificate.
A certificate in this, which is still an option for folks to do. Talk a little bit about, from your experience in the industry, what are the different pathways that people can take to kind of break into programming?
Right. There's so many, and that's what I also love about technology. It's not just one way. So like I mentioned to people, the different ways is when you can self-teach. If you have the discipline, especially with the internet now, back in the day when I went, like you had to go to school. And so now you can self-teach, whether it's free classes, starting out with SC Codes and then moving on to another platform, even online that may be paid, or a lot of the different academies online, or even YouTube. Then you have your tech schools. So a lot of your tech schools or community colleges may have a 1 to 2 year program based on how much you want to dig into that. And then of course you have your more traditional colleges and universities. So you've got computer science degrees now. And I just think each person has to know themselves and understand. The first question when people ask me, well, what should I get into? My first question is, well, what do you like? Start out that way first. It's not about chasing the money, because it will come if you're passionate and you like it. So I think it's find out, what do you like? Now figure out what type of learner you are. If you're not sure if you can do something online, do SC codes and see if you can finish out the courses and see if that fits your personality. Or are you someone that has to be in a classroom? So you kind of really have to know yourself to know what's going to be your best learning style. And when it comes to employment, that's where you kind of get into that. Every employer is different. You have some that will say you need to have a computer science degree. You have some that say, well, let's look at your years of experience. Let's take a look at your portfolio or look at your code. So it's really, once you know what you want to do, identify the employer you want to work for, and then find out what their requirements are, because not everybody's going to need you to be certified or have a particular degree. If you're going to work for yourself, like I tell people, in all my years of doing this, I've never had anyone ask me what school I went to. They want to see my portfolio.
Right.
I did get a nano degree in app development in 2018, and I decided I needed, because of the intricacies of app development, that was the reason why I said I need something more structured, because I couldn't. And I did that online. And that for me worked. That was my first time doing a full heavy loaded online course and getting that nano degree. So you just really knowing yourself and knowing what your end game is will help make that decision.
Such great advice. Um, More advice from Shambi can be found when she helps lead some of our meetups at the Richland Main Library, right?
Yes, yes. And those have been awesome. I've really enjoyed meeting the different ones in the community. And because you see, there are so many people who want to learn and want to know where this learning can take them. So it's been a great experience.
Well, we're so glad to have you as an SE Codes mentor. Thank you for all that you do, for all of these tips, and we look forward to a lot more with you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shambi.